back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and some more interesting things have been talked about in connection with World of Tanks in the last few days. Though first up, there was a developer Facebook Live session talking about some of the improvements, some of the changes that they're planning to introduce in 2017. So this is stuff that is coming very, very soon. First up was improved matchmaking. Now, before everyone gets really excited about skills based, that's not going to happen. What they're talking about is splitting the tiers out better, so that you don't get the situation where you are the sole tier 8 tank, for instance, in a game with just 9s and 10s. So the ideal scenario is this one here that they have on this scenario. So 3 top tier tanks, 5 middle tier tanks, and 7 bottom tier tanks. Now, let me just make that slightly bigger. Ooh, there we go. Now excuse me, sorry. I don't know about you, I'm not entirely comfortable with this. So the idea is that if you're in a bottom tier, so in this case there's a tier 10 matchup, and you're in a tier 8 tank. If you are in this matchup, at least you can fight other tier 8s, and so there's something for you to fight for. You probably got a chance against the tier 9s, and there's only 3 tier 10s. Now, two things worry me. Is one is actually, if I'm a tier 8 and I'm in a tier 10, depending on the tank, to be fair, I quite like being in a tier 10 because there's a lot more hit points, a lot more experience to be earned, because you get more experience for hitting higher tier vehicles. I don't know. It's interesting. It'd be interesting to see what people think about this. I mean, to me, it's an interesting change. I can see positives and negatives. If you're a tier, I mean, what if you're in a really, really super good tier 10 tank? You've only got to worry about 3 enemy tanks, theoretically, that can take you down easily, or relatively easily. Everything else is going to have a hell of a job. And the tier 8s, of which nearly half the team is tier 8s, they're going to have a hell of a job taking you down. What if you're in the new OP mouse? Or worse still, a platoon of 3 of those as top tier 10s. Good job. Good luck any of those tier 7s taking that platoon down. So I kind of see that as a positive and also a negative. The second alternative, so if they can't fill it that way, their second alternative is to do a 2-level battle. So this would involve 5 tier 10s and 10 tier 9s in this case. So 5 top tier, 10 sort of second tier, middle tier, and no bottom tiers at all. Now, bear in mind, of course, all these changes come about once the changes to light tanks have happened, so there is no longer any +3 matchmaking. Light tanks will be treated as the same class they are, and will go up to 10. So potentially in here you could have light tanks in tier 10. The other option is if there's an awful lot of one class of tank in the queues, they would put a whole team of the same tier together, which is kind of an ideal in some ways, I would say. So that's intriguing. So that's the first thing they're looking at from there. And yes, I'd be interested to see what you guys think. I have mixed feelings about it. Very mixed feelings about it. I know it can be tremendously frustrating when you're in a tier 8 and you keep getting put in tier 10s. At least if you put in a tier 10 and there's only 3 of them, that's fairly good. However, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too NIMBY, not in my backyard. But anyway, I don't know. The other thing they're talking about is that there will be no more than 3 artillery per side. Now, my view has always been 3 is too many. It should be 2, and I think 2 would be perfect. Now, I think it was Anfield doing a video talking about this, and he was saying he's worried about the 3 minimum, because he says, does that mean that artillery are going to be more prevalent. So pretty much every game you go into, there'll be artillery there and 3 artillery there, because if there's lots of people waiting to play artillery in the queue, the matchmaker's always going to put 3 in to clear it. However, if it's a normal matchmaking like now, some games will have 4, but then other games will have nothing. And so, but again, I think that's made me a bit pedantic. I think artillery 2 to 3 per game, perfectly fine. They're also working to letting only 1 tier platoons into random battles. So I have to say, I don't see this so much. Years ago, well, when I first started to play, it seemed to happen an awful lot, where you'd get some jerks playing mixed matchmaking that just didn't make sense. So a tier 7 tank with a tier 3 tank, for instance. Or sometimes people really jerking off and doing a tier 10 with a tier 1. I don't see it so much, but Wargaming have always had a bit of a bee in their bonnet about this, and so apparently the new matchmaking will only allow 1 tier difference in platoons, which, given the fact that lights will no longer be different matchmaking, that probably is fair enough, I guess. And reducing instances of map duplicates, so this is a definite positive. When you're playing the game and you just keep getting the same map, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not, but you just keep getting the same map. Every map, every time the game starts, it's the same map, or every other map is the same map, and it gets very boring. So they're going to do something about that, which again I think is really good. So that's interesting. So I think it's good again that Wargaming are looking at all these things. It's good that they're looking at the different elements of it to try and make sure that the matches are a little bit more balanced, shall we say. Now the other thing they've talked about is getting vehicle spread right, so that you won't have situations where everything has all heavy tanks on one team and all mediums on the other. So the way they're going to look at it is they'll start assembling with light tanks, so they'll put a couple of light tanks into the game, then SBGs, then TDs, and then presumably fill it out with mediums and heavies, which I think that's pretty good. I think it's very good, actually. It's about time they did something like that, because again, one of the frustration things is you get on a city map and the entire team you're on is mediums and the other team have got like 8 heavies, and you just know you've got very little chance of taking them on. So that's good. I think that's the main stuff. So here's the rotation things. Improved matchmaker makes it unlikely or less likely to get the same map repeating, so that's got to be good, right? Next thing is light tanks. Well, we knew this was coming. They've talked about this. They talked about it at World of Tanks Fest last year. So light tanks will go up to tier 10, well, on 4 branches anyway, and presumably others will follow along fairly soon afterwards. So there's a French one, there's a German one, Russian, and a Chinese one, and an American, so it's 5 branches, sorry. So no British at the moment, but then British don't have any top tier light tanks, so yeah. But what they'll do is, there's a lot of shuffling around, and I've talked about on this video, and I'm sure countless other people have talked about it incessantly. Lots of changes to light tanks. We still haven't seen what the impact's going to be on things like premiums. I noticed they were selling the Type 62 this week, this last weekend gone rather, the Chinese tier 7 premium light tank. Now at the moment that gets +2 matchmaking, so what are they going to do with that? Are they going to leave it as +2 matchmaking, or are they going to change it? If they change it, they've nerfed all the other tanks, so would they have to nerf the premium or not? No idea what's going to happen there, because traditionally they do not like to change premium tanks. So again, the Type 64, another Chinese tier 6 light tank, what are they going to do about that thing? The girlfriend, the black dog, that again, the AMX, AMX, what is it, 1357. Again, another premium light tank. What are they going to do with them? There's been nothing I can find to talk about what's going to happen with these tanks. So they're already rendering them better. So these are in high definition now. These are some of the tier 10 vehicles that you can get. That's the is that the Sheridan? Yeah, that's the Sheridan, which is the American tier 10. That's the T100, the Russian one. That's the obviously German one because of the emblem. That's the Chinese WZ132, and that's the French AMX. So they are definitely on their way. So something that which will get some of the better players excited, I have no doubt, is ranked battles. Some way off, I think, judging by some of the comments here in this article. But basically what they're talking about doing is a sort of ranked battles league between players driving only tier 10 tanks. So it will just be tier 10s. And the way you perform in your battle will move you up and down some kind of league. And people love showing off how great they are, so I have no doubt this will be fantastically successful for all the super unicorns, and actually might be good for us less unicorns who just want to have a good game without being murdered by people spamming gold. So the ranked battles, again, there's very little detail at this stage, but it seems to be suggesting that you will be matched up according to your ability, so that's interesting. So if you're a 45%er, they will try and put you in battles with other 45%ers. So that's kind of interesting, because they've talked about skills matchmaking being very difficult to do, and I'm not quite sure how they do that. Because you may be a 45%er overall, but you may be absolutely fantastic in one tier 10. So how does that change the matching? Anyway, that's all to be decided. There'll be some sort of prizes associated with ranked battles. Again, nothing clear exactly what that is yet, but I'm guessing mainly this is for the ego more than anything else. So you're leading ranked battles, or you're in the top 10 ranked battles. The other thing that's interesting about this is that it's not reflective on the actual results of the game. So if you are defeated as a team, it doesn't necessarily reflect on your ability. If you had an absolute blinder, you played brilliantly, you got lots of kills, lots of damage, scouted lots of people, whatever it may be, you would still do better than somebody on the winning team who didn't do very much at all, but just happened to be carried along by the team. So that's good, I guess. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but good move, I reckon. So yeah. Ranked battles coming sometime, but it looks like this one may be a little bit further away. So next up, improvements to graphics. So this is what mine's looked like, and this is what they're proposing to change it to look like. So considerably better graphics, lots more animation. Looks like the terrain is so much better. So a lot of work going on to improving these graphics and making the game visually more attractive for us to players, which again I think is all good. I mean, we enjoy the game, but I think, talking for myself here, tell me if I'm wrong down in the comments down below. You always do. But for me, I love playing the game. It's great fun to challenge myself and play different tanks and everything else, but it's the visual experience as well is great fun. That's what makes it stand out and make you want to come back. So yeah, there's a lot of work going on here, really clever. Look at the graphics. I mean, I'm not running the very best graphics card here, but even I can see this is significantly better modeling. Now what they've promised, that they will try and limit they will limit, look at the foliage on those trees. Oh, beautiful foliage. Oh yes. They will try and limit the impact on people's PCs, that you don't have to have a huge great computer that could power NASA models as well. Look at the statues. That's the theory, is that it will be somehow that they will manage it so that these new graphics will run on you know, pretty rubbishy computers, just so that it won't impact players. But those who have the very best graphics will obviously see the very best effects of these things, and it does look really, really impressive, I have to say. Very, very impressive. Lots of extra features, and one assumes this will take a long time to implement, because they've got to do an awful lot of coding to get this right. But nice to see, and again, nice to see they're continuing to improve things. Personally, I wish they, oops, get rid of that thing. I wish that they would show, I wish they would introduce more maps myself, but hey, never mind. Okay, to everybody's favourite class of vehicles, artillery. So as everybody knows, or most people will know, Wargaming have been testing out some new mechanics for artillery on the test server, on the sandbox, which is the pre-test server. Get it right, Dom. So this is where they get to test out some new mechanics, see whether they like them, if they don't like them, if they need tweaking, or they just bin them entirely. And one of the things they looked at was artillery. And because everybody whinges like crazy about artillery one-shotting things, but they don't seem to care about KV2s doing the same. A little bit political there. They looked at how they could change it. So the idea with artillery on the sandbox at the moment is that you get this stun mechanic. So they're effectively, their penetration, their damage, and is reduced fairly considerably in the case of some tanks, some artillery, but their splash radius is increased considerably, and they have this effect of stunning crew inside the tanks that are within their blast circle. Depending on how close it is to the center of the blast, there's more, it takes longer for the stun effect to disappear, and the stun effect is kind of like having a crew member knocked out, but obviously it affects the entire crew. So this seems to have been largely positively received on the sandbox. Personally, I played quite a few games with artillery there, and I actually found it quite fun. And of course, the next discussion, at the moment they're testing tier 8, 9s and 10s on the sandbox, to see what the effect is on all these different guns. Now, the article here on the Daily Bounce, which is fascinating, is suggesting that the stun mechanic will only affect artillery with guns of 150mm or more, which kind of nicely sidesteps the whole challenge around what do you do with things like Berts and Lefebvres and all these tanks that currently have very high rates of fire but very limited splash. Do you change that? So it looks like they're going to duck that entirely. So it will be anything with a gun 150mm or above is what they're now testing, and clearly this change is going to be coming in fairly quickly, because they are now testing tier 6 SPGs in the super test server. So it's not even on the sandbox, this is the super test server, and super test obviously comes before the actual test server that then becomes the real patch. So that's much closer to reality. So that means there's some changes to some of the existing artillery. I won't go into a huge amount of detail, you can look at the article here, but the AMX 13 F3 will have changes made to it because it now has the stun duration. So again, I'm assuming what it says, average damage is 700, penetration is down to 39mm, but the splash radius is 9 meters, which is pretty reasonable, and 22 seconds of stun is possible with it. What's that? That's the CU8, SU8, isn't it? No. Oh, I don't know which one that one is. One of the Russian artillery. Again, bring in the stun. The M44, everyone's favourite one-clicker, that will also be impacted because it has a gun 150 or more. The Hummel, which is another one of people's favourites, I see a lot of people playing that, again impacted by these changes. So interesting, and it does, as I say, get around that whole challenge of what do you do about these tanks that currently have very small blast circles. Do you change the entire mechanics of them? Well, it looks like they don't. They just say only 150mm or more get the stun mechanic. So interesting, very interesting.
Did anyone else capture the stories about these Chinese tank destroyers? This is the WZ-120-1GFT, rather nice looking thing. This is the 120GFT, also very nice thing. They look like Sues, really. So these were unveiled, is that the right way to say it, at this live cast that the Chinese company that runs the server, the Wargaming server in China, ran recently, and they unveiled these new designs, and everyone was wondering whether they were spoofs, because apparently this company have a habit of playing tricks on people and bringing out sort of things that don't actually exist, or talking about things that aren't going to arrive. Well, according to reports coming on status report, these are Chinese only tanks, so they will only appear on the Chinese server, which is a huge shame. And I don't really get this way that different servers run things in different ways in World of Tanks. The brand is the same, the basic engine is the same, and yet there seems to be some variation on how things are run. And I know things are different in China, right? But it just seems weird that the Chinese server can go off and do its own thing and bring in brand new tanks, which the rest of us can't get our hands on. I would love to see a Chinese TD branch in the game, because I like the Chinese tanks generally. I think they're great fun to play, yeah, I'd like to get my hands on these things, but looks like I'm not going to be lucky in not coming to us. So one of my favourite YouTubers, as people will know, is Sam Lockhart, who does a whole series of sort of leaked videos, and he's got another good one up at the moment, talking about the Lorraine 40T. Now, those of you who've been playing the game for a little while will be familiar with that tank. It used to be a tier 9 French medium autoloading tank. It was taken out 3 patches ago and replaced with the tier 9 Batchat. So the plan, according to Sam at least, is that this tank will come back, but as a tier 8 premium tank. Good old Wargaming, get more money off us. So let's have a quick listen and look at what Sam's dug out on this.
But that's the whole history behind it, or story behind it. So here are the original models, the standard def models of the lorry. So you know this vehicle, I know it. It was pretty huge. It was basically a gigantic semi, but that was fast. Autoloading gun was pretty decent, I remember it. So it wasn't that accurate, but it was pretty fast to aim compared to the AMX 5100, but it was at tier 9. So here are the HD models. Looks pretty nice, right? So they added a bunch of new stuff like the track links, the tarp, the canvas at the back, the MG for the gunner. It's actually the loader, but it only has a gunner, commander, and a driver now, so only 3-man crew. So they took out 1 man, alright. But the tools at the back, at the front, yada yada. So looks pretty nice. What the hell is this thing? A mushroom? That looks like a vent, the mushroom vent on the T-54, but
like
it could be a hat, like those yeah. Chinese hats, straw hats. I don't know what the hell that thing is, but I don't know what the hell. What the hell is this thing? Like a tumor? It's not a tumor. Okay, but yeah, it does look pretty nice. So I like how they put more details into the actual textural model, like different tarp, different tools, fuel tanks. Pretty nice.
So kind of cool looking. 0 armor, but let's have a quick listen to the stats.
At tier 9. So take a quick photo memory, I guess. But here are the new stats. So as you can see, from the 9.17 test server, nothing much has changed for the gun. So same DPM, same penetration, yada yada. They just nerfed the accuracy a little bit, nerfed the horsepower, and therefore nerfed the horsepower per ton ratio, yada yada. So not a lot of stuff has been changed for 9.17 test server, but they changed it a little bit more to the 9.17.1 live server. So here are the actual stats from 9.17.1 live server. And I color coded everything based on the average with other medium tanks at tier 8. So as you can see, the alpha is pretty good, 300. Penetration also pretty good, 232. It's a heavy tank gun. It's like the AMX 5100. So this gun is going to penetrate pretty well as deal a lot of damage. But rate of fire is pretty low. Turret traverse 37.55 degrees per second. So that's a little bit below average. 8 degrees of gun depression, pretty good, but 15 elevation is a little bit wonky. Reloads about 35 seconds, so you cannot fit a gun rammer. You could help it with
4 shells,
brothers in arms, food, and vents. So it could go down to like 33, but still a little bit long. Now, there are 4 shells in the clip. It takes 2.5 seconds per shell, so it's a little bit different than the original Lorraine 40T. Originally, it was 6 rounds at 2.73 seconds per round. So now it's slightly better at unloading the rounds, but you don't have that many shells to burst. So the average potential damage of a clip is 1,200. 4 rounds, 300 damage, 4 times 300, 1,200, right? So you could burst a tier 7, but mostly other tier 8s will have about 1,500 health. So you cannot really outburst a same tier vehicle. So don't go too balls deep with this vehicle.
So enough of Sam for the moment. So yeah, it's as he's saying, the clip's not fantastic. Only 4 shells gives only an average damage 1,600. You can see here that the armor is irrelevant. 40, 30, 25, 45, 30, 20 on the turret, just doesn't have any. But the power ratio is very, very good. 21.25 is very good, and top speed of 60 is extremely good. So this thing's a fast, not stealthy. It's a fast moving assassin. Drives around, unleashes 4 shells, then tries to get away and hide while it reloads the clip, which takes 35 seconds to reload these. So this is Sam's final thoughts on the Lorraine 40T Premium Tier 8 tank. So this will be, if the stats go through, and bear in mind, as always with anything to do with these leak videos or anything to do with test server or super test server, the stats can well change. So this is currently what he's saying. So strength and weakness is the same. Penetration is great. Alpha's good. Hit points per ton is good. Top speed is very good, and the autoloader burst is very good. But weakness is obviously hull and turret traverse. It's pretty slow at doing that. DPM at 1600 without any kind, because you won't get a rammer on this because it's an autoloader. So 1600 DPM is pretty rubbish. Accuracy is not fantastic. Aim time's not fantastic. It doesn't have any armor, and it's the size of a building. So that's not great. And is it worth it? Well, it's currently been listed at something, well, on this it's about 10,000 gold, which is at the higher end of a tier 8 premium tank cost, so £35, 40 euros, something like that. Is it worth it? Well, he tends to suggest that it's a good tank, but it's very much an old school premium. It's a premium with some very good strengths, but a lot of gaping weaknesses. So it's sort of outclassed by all the new power creep tanks, soon to release Chrysler K being one, but also the Liberté, the Patton, Patriot, and of course the Object 252. So yeah, interesting. We'll see what comes of this and how long it will be. But it's the files are in the game, so again that tends to, not always, but it does tend to suggest that means it's probably not far off coming, and we might well have the Lorraine 40T back into the game.
So Sam also did a video about the new incoming Swedish medium premium tank. This is tier 8. This is the Stuntwagen 81. Now if it looks familiar, it should do. This is a Centurion Centurion 1 basically in Swedish colours. It's green. Couple of significant changes in it which we'll come to, but this is the thing. No idea when it will come, but the game files are already in the game. although it only has a holding price at the moment of 100 gold. Now don't get excited guys, as it will not be sold for that price, that is for damn sure, but it is basically just a Centurion decked out for Swedish. Nothing different. So it's a reskin basically, which is a bit lazy of Wargaming again. There you go, making money out of something easy. Not a shock, never mind. So this is what Sam has to say about some of the stats for this tank.
Here are the actual initial stats of the vehicle. So as you can see, it has the same gun stats as the Mark 1, but it has 254 millimeters of frontal turret armor with APCR as the standard shell. So, I mean, the AP shell does come in handy because the normalization, but APCR flies faster, so trade-offs. Also, initial terrain resistance was buffed to the final terrain resistance, but it could be just that it was rounded up to one significant figure, but math, I guess, science, you'll learn about it in science class, so, or like physics, but sig fig is pretty important. So here is the collision model of this vehicle. As you can see, 254 frontal turret armor. It's rounded too, so shoot at the sides it's 280, will bounce. Frontal of the matlet is 235, so it's a very solid piece of armor. You'll not penetrate this thing unless you shoot APCR, high penetration APCR shell into the middle of the matlet. And that's the only way to pin.
C9s and 10s,
the turret ring is 250, so you can also penetrate here, but usually this vehicle will be hauled down like any other British tanks or American tanks with a lot of gun depression. They will be hauled down, so it will be like 10 degrees at the front, so something like this. And yeah, it's a smaller area. Shooting at the top of the turret, no. So pretty strong, but the whole armor is the classic 3 inches or 76.2 millimeters of garbage, like the Centurion Mark 1. So if you get touched by artillery shells, usually at high tiers, the artillery shells have about 100 millimeters of pen for high explosives, and high explosives do not lose penetration over distance. So if you get hit directly like this, it probably will pin and you will not have a good day. But yeah, it's basically a Centurion Mark 1 with dramatic increase to the turret armor. Side of the hull is still pretty much garbage, so 50 millimeters. You do have side skirts, but don't depend on it. Side of the turret is the same, 88.9. Rear is the same, 38. So yeah, the classic 3 inches or 76.2, but now it comes with 254 millimeters of turret armor. So compare this to the Centurion Mark 1 with the Mark 3 turret. It's a lot better on the turret cheeks. So yeah, you'll bounce a lot more shells with this turret than with this turret. But I mean, there is one big trade-off, and that's less engine power. So here are the main stats of the vehicle. So as you can see, I highlighted everything and color-coded based on the average values of tier 8 mediums. So damage per shot, 230 is not that bad. So it's below average, but it's a rapid firing gun, so you puncture a lot of holes. Penetration is pretty good, 226. So that's APCR, remember, APCR shell. And yeah, that's actually amazing for tier 8 medium, because the Centurion is known for penetration, as well as the new 100mm L100 88mm on the Panther II, or somewhat lesser degree of a STA2 or STA1, but the Centurion is known for penetration. It's the highest penetration of tier 8 mediums, so that's pretty good. Rate of fire is slightly below average, but gun reload speed is pretty decent, so that will go down to 6.5 seconds or so with a good crew. Turret traverse is below average, 37.55 degrees per second, but you do have 10 degrees of gun depression, 18 elevation, so utilize the gun depression. Aim time is pretty good, 2.21 seconds, and usually you probably will fit a vertical stabilizer, so that's pretty good. And accuracy is also very good, 0.32. Average DPM is slightly above average, 1900 or so. Health is also chunky, 1450. So all of these stats are like the Centurion Mark 1. So the only difference is the turret armor at the front, 254. The hull is still crappy, 76.2. Side of the hull, 50.8. So yeah, but it weighs about 50.8 tons with only 650 horsepower engine, so it got reduced, and therefore the horsepower per ton ratio is only 12.79. That's close to a heavy tank. It's a little bit above average for a heavy, but this is a medium, so the average for a medium is about 15.79, so, or 15.8, so a little bit slower to rev up. Top speed of 50 kilometers per hour now because the buffs to the Centurion tanks in 9.17.1, reverse of 20 kilometers per hour. It's alright, so you can still wiggle back and forth and haul down, but it's not as fast to rev up based on the horsepower per ton ratio. Hull traverse 37.55, same as the turret, so below average, but it's slightly better at the camo rating than the actual Centurion. I'll give you guys the comparison, but you'll see, it's a little bit more stealthier. View range is just as good, 400 meters, radio range, standard, carry 65 rounds, and terrain resistance is slightly below average for the hard and medium, but above average for the soft, so we'll get somewhat bogged down ish, but not that much. I mean, based on the horsepower per ton ratio, but it has the turret armor. So the main selling point of this vehicle is the turret armor, and you should play this vehicle like a heavy based on the initial stats. Now gold cost is only 100, but that's a placeholder value, so it will not cost 100 gold. That's only placeholder. So usually for tier 8 premium medium tanks, it costs about 7,000 gold. For premium tier 8 heavies, it's about 10,000-ish. So that's the basis for the gold cost. But who knows? It may cost like a T34-3, which is about the same price as a T34 or Lurve. So
So pretty interesting there from Sam on this one. So the other thing to remember, of course, is that this is a medium premium, so you won't be able to use it with your, if you've got up to tier 8 to 9 or 10 in the Swedish line, because they're all heavies. So this will only allow you to train crew for the Leo, the Steve 74, the other Steves in the line down at the medium branches. So that kind of is a little bit of a limiter too, plus it's a 4-man crew, whereas the heavies themselves have only got 3-man crews. So yeah, it's that becomes a bit of a challenge, but it looks an interesting tank. I mean, it's basically just a Centurion with extra turret front and slightly slower to justify the extra weight that it's carrying. Yeah, interesting. That's obviously, it's in the files. We'll see if and when it appears. So did anyone else spot this? Well, on Tuesday this week, Wargaming was selling the Patriot without the cartoon gimmicky armour or paint job. So you could buy the straight up, ordinary, normal more historically correct camo version on it, so you didn't have to get this Mickey Mouse cartoon bloody horrible Patriot thing. Now when they originally sold this tank, you couldn't, you could only buy the Patriot. Every other server in the game, I think, had both options, so you could buy the cartoon tank or you could buy the straight up one. Wargaming EU, for whatever reason, decided they weren't going to do that, and you could only buy the Patriot. And it was the same with the Liberté. You had to buy that ridiculous paint job on that tank too. What's the betting? At some point they do that one without that horrible camo job. Now, I for one have already put in my ticket to Wargaming asking, since this is now available, to swap my tank over. I don't really expect they will, but I don't want the cartoon tank. I think it's disgusting. It doesn't. I stopped playing it because I think it burns my eyes to look at the damn thing. Yet it is a fantastic tank. So anyway, we'll see. I'll let you know if they do allow me to swap it over. I think I know the answer will be no, but you got to try these things, and it's just ridiculous that they clearly can offer it. They have offered it, and now they have offered it, and yet we had to get that disgusting paint job.